Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to finish today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Felix. I'd like to request Electric Octopus, Flow, Reflect, Change, Engage, Repeat. Interesting title. Even more interesting is that I could only find a live version of this. And so I had to do a little bit of digging because I'm not a huge fan of checking out live versions without an accompanying video, at least. That's kind of the benefit of the live versions, being able to see the performance. If I'm listening strictly to audio, I'm going to prefer studio. But there isn't a studio version of this, which is frequent with a lot of their live albums. I came across that the songs on them either were untitled or did not exist on any other studio albums. I have to assume they make new music for live performances. And since I find it kind of odd that they would make pre-composed music for this, I'm kind of leaning into the idea that they're probably a jam band. So, let's dive into this and see what Electric Octopus is bringing to the table with Flow, Reflect, Change, Engage, Repeat. Okay, this section started in 6/8, now we're in 4/4. And the transition was rough. Beautiful guitar work though. Bass coming in, doing pedal tone work. I do think that this is improvised. The drummer tried to introduce that tempo shift before the guitar was on board with it, and it took him a bar to lean into that. It does feel like they're playing off of each other. I kind of hope that's true. This is very neat, something we don't hear too often these days. Yeah, so the bass has been slowly increasing its complexity. It started getting a little funky, doing a pedal tone on the first quarter and the third quarter of its section, with the second and fourth quarters being licks. And now we've got straight on counterpoint coming from our bass. I kind of wish I could see this though. I'm curious if there's any visual cues, or if they just have so much chemistry they can just do this. I mean, if you practice being a jam band, you can absolutely pull this stuff off, even in separate rooms. Yeah, you heard that? The guitarist introduced the new speed, and the drums didn't pull in until a couple beats later. It's fun because it almost feels like three people trying to trip each other up, having a friendly competition, you know. It's interesting how often the bass and the bass and drums are the ones leading the direction. I think I've only heard one time when the guitarist was the one who pointed to where they were going next. I just realized we went from this ballady stuff. The drums brought us up, and the guitar brought us back down. We're back doing like a kind of like a loungy. Well, the guitar not loungy anymore. The drums kind of got that loungy ballad thing going on though again. I do kind of wish the guitars and basses had some sort of way to communicate a key change. Oh, what is this drummer doing? What is... I mean, I guess the drummer's just setting the tone for whenever the guitarist wants to move on. But it's got so much more energy than what the guitar is wanting to do right now. Yeah, this section's really working for me. The rhythmic synergy between the three of them, definitely one of their better ideas. Yeah, even the way the fill came through. It's a really rough transition. It's the only time I'm going to mention that. We'll talk about it in the analysis though. Every time I think they're petering out, they land on something great. That was slick. The guitar and bass caught onto that real quick. curious how they're going to end this. I mean, it works.
Hello there. Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah, hi, is everybody? Is everybody good?
Alright, this is going to be a rather quick analysis because honestly, there's not a lot going on here. I do strongly believe this is entirely improvised, primarily because there's a lot of meandering, there is a lot of rough transitions. There are several instances where our three instruments are not on the same page but get onto the same page uh, within a bar or two. And while you could certainly pre-compose something like this based on those three aspects of this performance, I'm going to lean towards the fact that this was just a completely improvised show, which is cool. It is cool. Okay. I don't I felt like I was leading that on somewhere, but I didn't want to. It is cool, especially as a musician. I have often stated that music like this, what I refer to as jam music or jam bands, it does have an audience, and there are people who are going to enjoy this, but from my perspective, it's always something that is for the musicians. And like I said, that's my perspective. I love participating in jam bands. I did a lot of it both when I was in university, high school. I was actively in a physical musical community where, we could just do this, right? You just hear somebody playing around the corner and you always have your instrument on you. Uh, and you go around and say, hey, can I join in? And they say, yeah, because people like to play together. And you just join in and you have a good time. Like, I will absolutely jam with anybody, anytime. But I'm not a huge fan of listening to stuff like this. Um, if it was shorter, for sure, but 30 minutes of noodling around and exploring ideas with your buddies is, to me, it is about the purity of the music, which doesn't always incorporate the listener's perspective. At best, I can insert myself in here as a fellow performer who just isn't playing, right? And I can kind of dig what they're doing, how they get to certain parts, how they move through the track, what I might like to add if I could to what they're doing. But this is not something that, for me, is a casual listen. I don't think this is something that will ever be a casual listen for me. And so it is cool that we have a 30-minute improv performance from this group with no caveats. It is cool. But it is not something I'm going to say I enjoyed a majority of that time. And it's not something I would listen to again. And so, if we were to apply some analysis to this, to explain what it is they're doing and how they achieved it, The primary concept here is that the guitarist played a lead element, occasionally dipping their toes into purely textural ideas that were still in the spotlight, while the bass played pedal tones and occasionally walking the bass line and counterpoint. While the drums did their own thing to an extent. I mean, that's it's a bit reductive, but I can't say that the drummer consistently played a rhythm that matched what everyone else was doing. The drummer often did their own thing to such an extreme at one part that I stated something along the lines that they were kind of whispering in the guitarist ear. You ever had that friend, or maybe you're a parent and that kid, or maybe you're a kid and that parent, who, when you're trying to leave somebody's house, just can't seem to get to the car. You say goodbye, you give your farewells, and then another conversation happens at the door. And then eventually you say your goodbyes, and you do your farewells, and then another conversation happens at the car, right? And so that one person is always kind of like giving the things like, hey, come on, let's go. We got to be somewhere. Giving those little hints, those little whispers. Hey, we still got these other things to do before we get home tonight, right? That's what the drummer felt like at that part. The guitarist had brought everything down, and it was a real chill section. And the drummer is back there with this driving, like 16th note on the hi hat kind of thing going on. Quiet still, not a lot of energy, volume wise, but really rearing to go. And they're kind of like saying, "Hey, come on, whenever you're ready, guitarist, we can head out of here. We can go do this other thing." And the guitarist's like, "Okay, okay, okay. We're getting there." And the drums like, and then he's like, all right, it's been like 5 minutes. Can we wrap this up? Let's head over. And the guitar's like, yeah, we're getting there. I promise you. I haven't forgotten we need to leave. Or I'm wrapping this up. I promise. And that's what it felt like. So, like, I can't even say that the drummer was consistently leaning into what everyone else was doing. So, yeah, I think the best description is they were doing their own thing. Sometimes it lined up, sometimes it didn't. Um, and they didn't have so much of a ringleader in this. Everybody sort of had their roles, but anybody could change anything at any time. Although I say anything, and primarily I suppose I mean tempo. Tempo and rhythmic patterns. Rhythm in general, I suppose. The bass can introduce a new syncopated concept, maybe emphasizing 2 and 4. And the drummer's like, "Oh, you're doing that? Let me start hitting the snare on 2 and 4." And the guitarist is like, "Oh, let me base something off of that," right? And so you kind of get this evolution of the track through rhythmic concept. We never change key, we never change chord progression. There isn't anything melodic or harmonic that indicates a shift in direction that everyone else needs to follow in line with. The guitarists can make whatever melody they want, and the harmony never changes. We stick in the same chord progression and key. So, yeah, pretty much anybody can change their rhythm when they want, and other people can follow in line if they wish, but they don't have to. We do see this happen a few times where, I mean, a majority of the time where they do, right? Somebody dictates a new rhythm or a new tempo, and everyone falls in line with it eventually. And that's the whole song. You either really dig that concept or you don't. I don't really see a middle ground here. Well, maybe the middle ground is if I was walking by this live, I check them out for a little bit. I suppose that's a middle ground, and it's a valid one. But I don't really see this being somewhere in between of I love this and I wouldn't put this on my own. It's not. I don't really see like a middle ground there. Maybe there is. Let me know. Now, what this lacking of a ringleader, of a conductor, means what allows anybody to change the song at a whim, at least the rhythmic component, means that there's these moments of confusion, of desynchronization between what we could call sections of the song, where maybe the guitarist introduces a new tempo and everybody has to catch up, and there's a little bit of that lag as everybody else is figuring out what's going on. Oh, the guitar is slowed down. What should I do for that? All right, let me slowly work into that, right? And maybe take 3, 4, 5, 6 beats to get into that groove. And other times we just kind of let the song fall apart. I remember there was one time that the guitars completely shifted something and the bass and drums just kind of quit out. The drums kind of meandered for a bit. We had like some rogue cymbal hits that were out of uh, timing with what the guitar was doing. Just kind of created a little bit of confusion. And then they were just like, yeah, we'll let the guitar do what they want to do for a little. Um, and it creates a series of rough transitions where I might enjoy what an individual segment is doing, but at any given time, it can just completely flop into chaos and then move into something else that maybe I don't enjoy. So it makes it really difficult to become attached to any specific section, knowing it could be entirely short lived. Um, which is true for any sort of jam experience like this, but at least with this group in particular, we seem to stick around with the things I wasn't too hot on and quickly move out of the things I am enjoying. And there were some spectacular sections in here that I think if they go back and re listen to this as almost a sort of noodling around, like, oh, I really dig that section we did there. Let's copy it, into sheet music and expand upon it, make a full song. I don't know if that's something they do, but it's honestly a pretty cool concept, right? I mean, that way you never really have to come up with new music just out of nowhere, right? You go jam, you do a few live shows of jamming, and you pick some licks, some sections out, and that's how you start making your album. Then you release your album, you go do a live tour. You don't play stuff on the album, you noodle around to figure out material for your next album. That's actually pretty legit. I'm really digging that concept again from a musician or composer standpoint. Um, I'm not too sure if I would enjoy an entire show of just jam. Something I would not mind, as I stated, walking by, checking out for a bit, and heading out. But from a pure music perspective, from that musician composer angle, yeah, that is a phenomenal way to go about doing it, especially if you build your brand off of it and that's what people expect. I imagine the first show might go a bit rough when people want to hear their favorites and they get you noodling out some new ideas for your next album. But it is a cool concept if that's what they do. Now, the last thing I think I want to touch on here is just the stories that can come out of this, because it is like improv comedy. One person does one thing, one person does another thing, one person decides to change things up, and now everyone must adapt. And you can definitely create some comedy out of that, or even something compelling. I don't know if there's improv drama. Maybe there is. I've only ever heard of improv comedy. But you can certainly use the concept of adapting to craft narratives. And I think the same is true with music. There was one section where the guitarist brought things down and went to like a ballady kind of thing. And I pointed this out during the reaction. And the drummer, after 16 bars or whatever, brought it back up. right? And the guitarist falls, it's like, fine, okay, whatever, you don't want to do this right now. And they bring it back up for like 4 bars of high energy, and the guitarist is like, no, actually, I still want to go back to do the ballad. I'm not done with that section. They bring it back down, and there's kind of this tug of war over what are we going to do with the song. Um, and it kind of showcases this struggle, this power dynamic through the music. And of course it's probably all playful. This group of people, they're not actually having a power struggle here. um, but it is fun to hear the struggle of direction when nobody is in charge, trying to create order out of that chaos. And the little micro stories that can come out of that. It's pretty neat. I think the last thing I want to hit before we head out is the title of the track, which I think is, well, profound. If hidden in plain sight, it seems a bit on the nose. What they are doing is engaging with flow, entering a flow state of just jamming out with each other, reflecting on what they have written, and figuring out where they would like to go with it, in which they hit stage two, which is to change. Once one person changes, the others must engage with this change, and you repeat this ad nauseum. Once everybody engages and is on the same page, you flow for a bit. You get that groove, that jam just sounds so good, and somebody says, "Oh, that was kind of cool what we did, but what if we took it in this direction?" And they change, and everyone else must engage with the change, and then you repeat back to the flow. I mean, it is just an accurate description of what a jam band does. But it's interesting because it's sort of also what I do when I listen to music critically. There are certainly times when I just go with the flow of it. Maybe there's just something really good going on and I'm jamming with it. And I reflect on that in memory. What was going on there? I'll interpret it maybe later on in the analysis, but at that moment I won't have any comments during the reaction because I just really enjoyed it. I was kind of casually listening at that point. And then the music will change and I'll have to shift gears. I'll have to change to hopefully something a bit more critical so I can engage with the music, and this kind of repeats ad nauseum. I do talk about engaging critically with the music often, but I'm not going to say that that is what my brain is in 100% of the time during these reactions. There are moments when I kind of fall into a casual listen, especially for tracks that are more repetitive. Especially if we have a verse chorus concept and the verses are the same, choruses are the same. The critical mode gets turned off once I kind of know what everything's going. I kind of try to take it in on an emotional level. I kind of feel what's going on rather than mentally break it down. And I do flip between these ideas. I jam with it and I reflect through my memories, what it was doing at the time, and then I switch over to a critical and I engage with the music as it is in the moment. And then that led me to the idea that this kind of can be extrapolated out from this musical concept to something different. Flow and reflect. Flow is about being in the moment, reflection is about talking about the past. Change is once again about the moment, and engagement is about the moment. So we see a lot of concepts of presence, of being in the present, but there's also the concept of engaging with the past through reflection. And this is actually how we can see the evolution of a person, of societies, of pretty much any groups of people, whether you want to classify them in eras or regions or ages, whatever. People grow by doing what comes naturally, reflecting on that, engaging with change, and repeating that process. That is how you grow. You figure out what you like and don't like about what is typical, and you figure out where you would like to change things, and you do the change. And so I really like this title. It's extremely precise about describing the song, but the words they chose are vague enough to be applicable to a wide variety of concepts that, at the very least, got me thinking about stuff outside of music, which is pretty cool for music to do. So, we're going to wrap this up here. Those are my thoughts on Electric Octopus's Flower, Flow, Reflect, Change, Engage, Repeat. What did you think of the track? Did you enjoy it? Anything that stood out to you? Anything you'd like to correct me on or add on to what I stated? Let me know down in the comments. Above that is a description box, and in there you'll find a link to Linktree, which takes you to this place that has links for everything related to the channel. You can find my music, you can find a link to the Discord server, you can find ways to support the channel, and so much more. Go ahead and check that out. Above that, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. Alright, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. We're going to look at our final band, Therion, something off of their first album. Friday, we'll look at something off of their last album. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.